So good evening. Thank you for being here. My name is Elizabeth Leslie Gasway, and I'm the Vice President of the El Dorado County League of Women Voters. Thank you again and welcome. We are so happy that you're here. Just a little bit about the League. Many of you may know that the League of Women Voters was started in 1920 out of the suffrage movement, so women have only had the right to vote for about 102 years, so that's about one lifetime. So we are strong supporters of the election process and encourage all citizens to exercise their constitutional right to vote. Democracy needs everyone. So we're a little less than 50 days away from the election. You can register to vote all the way up to the day of the election with same-day voter registration. So please encourage your friends and family to get out there and vote. The League would like to thank Pinewood Elementary School and the Pollock Pines School District, specifically Principal Heather Minton and Superintendent Pat Atkins for letting us be here today, and our fantastic IT guru, Ross Arnold. Thank you so much for helping us out today. We also have some volunteers here in the audience. Just notice all of us by our League buttons. We're here to help you. If you have questions during the course of the forum, please raise your hand. Someone will come over and bring you an index card, and you can write on that your question and give it back to the volunteer, and that will get to us. Keep in mind, we combine questions if they are repetitive, and we try to be mindful of different topics and make sure we're hitting everything there. Tonight's forum calls for strict rules of civil discourse by both candidates and the public. If the public becomes unruly, or our candidates, we will shut the forum down. So please be on your best behavior. We're all neighbors in this community, and this is a vital part of our voter education efforts. So again, I want to thank the candidates especially for being here. We appreciate your dedication to democracy and your willingness to serve. Also, just a bit about the rules for the questions and answers. You will see here in front, we have our timer. Can you just hold up one of your paddles? She's going to be letting the candidates know when their time is expiring. Our candidates today, for their opening statements, they have 3 minutes. To answer each question, they have 2 minutes. And for their closing statement, they have 3 minutes. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you our candidates for District 5 Supervisor, Kenny Kurtzweiler and Brooke Lane. Thank you for being here. We love the alphabet. We're going to start alphabetically by last name for our first question. So that'll be Kenny, you'll be answering the first question. But prior to that, we're going to have you start with opening statements. So in that case, I'm going to have you, Brooke, start with opening statements. So when you're ready, go ahead, and you have 3 minutes.
Great. Well, thank you, and good evening to everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come and hear what we have to offer and what we'd like to bring to this position. Thank you for being here. My name is Brooke Lane. I was born and raised in El Dorado County, lifelong county resident, and I would like to be your supervisor for District 5. I have several years of experience in both the private sector and the public sector, including 20 years in banking and management, and 20 years owning our own family business, which was in photography. I've served on the City of South Lake Tahoe's City Council for 10 years, and 2 of those terms were as mayor. I've also served on a lot of the agency boards, especially up at the Basin, which include the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, the Tahoe Transportation District, the Conservancy, many nonprofits such as our Clean Tahoe program and the Lake Tahoe Educational Foundation. I also serve on the Joint Powers Authority, which oversees our ambulance service. So lots and a varied background. My priorities are housing, fire preparedness, traffic, snow removal, insurance issues, VHR enforcement. These things we share throughout District 5. And although District 5 is varied and contains 11 different communities, these are issues that we all have in common. How we solve the issues might be slightly different depending on various communities, but the issues are all very similar. Compromise is challenging. I listen to all sides of an issue and I do my homework. And I would appreciate your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Okay, Kenny, are you ready for your opening statement? You have 3 minutes.
I have 3 minutes, all right. I have lived, worked, and enjoyed South Lake Tahoe as a resident since 1977 when I came here for a vacation and stayed on, as so many have. I have ridden every bike trail, swam in every lake, and skied every mountain here in the Sierras. What makes me qualified for this position? Commitment. My wife and I have been married for 40 years. We've built our dream home, raised 3 children, and have owned a tree service and firewood business, construction and cleanup and hauling service since 1981. We are one of the longest privately owned companies in the community. I have always held 2 jobs up until I was 52 years old, and I'm a firm believer in upholding the family values, being a provider for my family. Our company has performed thousands of defensible space jobs for our residents. Being a tree service contractor, that just goes hand in hand. When the Caldor fire hit us, we stayed behind and gave critical information to our residents. I'm a 20-year veteran, having joined the Nevada Army National Guard at age 30, where I retired a major. At 37, I completed air assault school, and at age 44, I completed the Marine Winter Warfare Leader Instructor's course. I will use my experience to the best of my ability. I learned 2 very valuable lessons there in the military. One is to never ever sign for anything that you cannot touch, and the other was, as soon as you get to your unit, hook up with a sergeant that knows what's going on and follow him and keep your mouth closed until you learn what's going on. Accountability. I've written an article as a ski bum for over 22 years in our community. The one thing I've always questioned is the accountability of our local agencies. Involvement. I am very active in our community, both personally and professionally, through my company, where we have provided labor, monetary donations, and services to all local community fundraisers and events. Anyone who has ever asked me for help, even those who did not care for me, they have received that help. We never gave a hand out, we gave a hand up. Over the course of my time here in Tahoe, we, our company, and personally, have donated more than $150,000 to our local community. I do not belong to any single organization, so I can help them all without any reservations. I have attended every meeting and gotten involved with every aspect of the city and Myers, and hopefully, Pollock Pines also. We have had problems my entire life has been as a leader, and I do not want to be a politician. When you go into that booth to vote, remember, you're not voting for someone who's your friend or someone who's in your organization. You're voting for someone that you know has the life skills and experience, commitment, and drive to lead and face the challenges that we will all be facing in the future. Remember, John Lennon said, "There are no problems, only solutions." Thank you.
To our questions, and keep in mind these questions have been submitted by voters and members of the public. Our first question, we are going to start with Kenny, and you will have 2 minutes to answer the question. And we'd like to refrain from applause because it just takes us a little bit longer to get through our forum. So thank you for that, Kathy. So the first question goes to Kenny. And as we all well know, El Dorado County has a rural environment along with a limited water supply and road capacity. How do you balance the push for more housing while protecting the environment and addressing the limited water supply and road capacity?
Okay, up in South Lake Tahoe, which I can talk about, is we have a company called STUPID, South Tahoe Public Utility District. And they did a study quite a few years ago, and they found out that if we had no rain, no snow, no moisture, we would not run out of water for approximately 33 years. So up in the South Lake Tahoe area, we do not have a water shortage per se. That being said, we have to remember that we are responsible for everybody throughout the state of California and our district in Pollock Pines. And I am not aware of any water shortages or anything that is occurring right now in the Pollock Pines area. The last time that I ran, I did come down and I did talk to the EID, and I found out that they were improving their water district and their water capacity, and as far as I know, that has been improved quite a bit. As far as housing goes, up in Tahoe, we are almost built out with affordable housing or any kind of housing in the rural area of the county. The city is a whole different story. Pollock Pines is very similar to the rural area of South Lake Tahoe and the Myers area because we are limited in the areas that we can build. And we will not be able to build any large developments other than 2 to 3 homes and maybe on a lot. Other than that, the housing issue is something that that will need to be addressed as it comes up.
Thank you. Brooke, would you like me to repeat the question?
Nope, I'm good, thank you. Housing. So we're about 4,000 units short of what the demand is throughout District 5 and throughout El Dorado County. So clearly, housing has to be addressed. Some ideas with regards to water that is in shortage here, I know, is I think we need to do a better job capturing rainfalls as we can and creating supplies that don't already exist. As far as road capacity goes, another serious problem with regards to the infrastructure that we have not thought well through and that we need to. So there's other things that we can do to help provide housing, but they will affect both capacity and water supply. So, but we have, the people are here now that need housing. They're already here. So if we add accessory dwelling units onto parcels of land, that will help, but it will have a demand for water. So I do think that a study should be obtained to determine what that water shortfall might be and what kinds of things can we do perhaps to address those shortfalls.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our next question. You will be answering this question first, Brooke. And the question for this one is, how well do you think the vacation rental ordinance is working in District 5?
I don't think it's working at all in District 5. And this is what we talk about up in the basin all the time. You have some vacation home rentals here in the area, but compared to what we have up in Tahoe, it's a much smaller number. Look, the ordinance needs to be readdressed completely, and then it needs to be enforced. The ordinance basically says right now, if someone's violating a rule, they're in the hot tub after 10 or there's noise after 10, you as the citizen are supposed to leave your home, go next door to the home in violation, find out who the local representative is, go back to your house, call the local representative. The local representative is supposed to fix the problem within 30 minutes and self-report to the county within 24 hours. That's not a good ordinance, and I do want to make sure that we take the residents out of the middle of this, having to be the police. So we need enforcement, and that's one of the first things I will work on if elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Kenny?
Hey, VHRs, I agree, we have no enforcement up there. We do have the enforcement rules and the ordinances in place, but there is absolutely no enforcement whatsoever. I have been in contact with, I live in Myers, I have a VHR one door down from me, and I don't really have a problem with that VHR. What we need to do, besides doing the enforcement, is we need to get rid of the 8 to 10% of the VHRs that are causing 100% of the problems. These are the people that are run by Airbnb and out-of-town areas. So when you have a problem and you call that 800 number, you're getting somebody in Texas. I have got a plan that I've got 8 different points, and I had this same 8 points that I had last time I ran 4 years ago. And one of them is that every single VHR in the community, in the rural area of the county, because we don't have no control of the city, will be governed and be run by a local brick and mortar 24-hour-a-day business located in South Lake Tahoe that can address the problems within 25 minutes. Now, when it comes to enforcement, we have zero enforcement. I have been in contact with the code enforcement officer, and we actually have a recording from our code enforcement officer, which is located in Placerville, not in the area that we need them, that there is absolutely nothing they can do due to lack of money to to enforce the rules on the books. They have got one VHR has been denied their permit. They've got over 30 citations. Then nothing will be happening, and we actually have that on a recording from the head person. Enforcement is the key, and that's how we need to do it. And how do we get enforcement? We need to have the money from the TOT tax located in South Lake Tahoe and Pollock Pines, where the VHRs are located, to enforce the rules, and we need a code enforcement officer there also.
Thank you. Our next question, and Kenny, you'll be starting with this one first. Please provide your short and long-term solutions for the homeless situation.
Okay, we had a forum a while ago with the El Dorado County Chamber of Commerce, quite a few chambers of commerce down in the Board of Realtors also, and that was one of the big questions that they had. And they asked me, what would you do with the homeless? And my answer was, you need to have the homeless located in an area where there is facilities and services to take care of them. And the first question I asked was, I said, up in Pollock Pines, which is, you guys have somewhat of a homeless problem, and we have somewhat of a homeless problem up in South Lake Tahoe. Where are the facilities to help these people? Are they located up in Pollock Pines? No, they're not. Is there a transportation system to get them from Pollock Pines down to the facilities where they're located down in the Placerville area? No, there's not. So my response was, and of course I lost their endorsement right after I said this, I just said, stop using the homeless as a dumping ground and a political pawn up in the Pollock Pines area. You're putting them up there where there are no facilities, there are no services, and there's no transportation to get them to the facilities that can help them.
Thank you. Brooke.
Thank you. This is a question that I'm very supportive of. Up in Tahoe, we've solved homelessness. We took 3 renovated hotels, dilapidated hotels, and we turned them into navigation centers. We had 120 homeless people that were counted in February, and of those 120, we were able to 100% house veterans. We got another 80% of that 120 housed, and there's always a small percentage that don't want help and they don't want to be housed, and that's their right. Down here on the West Slope, you have about 400 homeless people and no services, really. Many of you will know that the Board of Supervisors on Tuesday just voted to approve a temporary housing for homeless where the old sheriff's office was, right next to the Board of Supervisors meeting facilities. So short term was part of your question. That has been solved by the supervisors. Long term, it needs to be a permanent facility. I think that the county should partner with a nonprofit that can handle this specifically. This is what they do. And you provide a navigation center where you don't have to get people to services, you bring the services to them. These are people. These are human beings. It could be you, it could be me. They need our help, and we should be there to help them.
Thank you. The next question, Brooke will answer first. How will you make sure that the concerns of South Lake Tahoe and Pollock Pines are given fair representation?
That's a great question. I had a meet and greet down here a couple weeks ago, and that was the very first question they asked. Was they said, we feel like the redheaded stepchild. We don't feel like we have a representation here. What are you going to do about it? Well, my idea is to start an advisory council. There are 11 communities that make up District 5, of which Pollock Pines is one, and South Lake Tahoe is one. But so is Myers and Kybers and Strawberry, Fallen Leaf, Meeks Bay, Tahoma, Phillips. You know, there's a whole slew of all of us that feel unrepresented. So this council will have a representative from each of those areas. I will meet with them quarterly or as needed as issues come up, but they will have my ear. And I think we'll be able to learn from each other as well. I think it'll bring us together as a district in a way in which we have never done before. So I look forward to that opportunity.
Thank you, Kenny.
Okay, just to go back to the homeless situation, I feel that the homeless should be put in an area where they have the services, and those areas are not in the rural areas of the county. Yes, the city of South Lake Tahoe did solve some of the homeless problem, but they put them near where the services are. And would you repeat that question, please?
Happy to. How will you make sure the concerns of South Lake Tahoe and Pollock Pines are given fair representation?
Okay. Redhead stepchild has been thrown around for years for South Lake Tahoe and Pollock Pines, and I have been in contact with past supervisors, and first thing they always out of their mouth is, yeah, you guys, we know you're up there, but we don't really care about you. So how do we get better representation? By showing up and being involved in the community that we're in. I have plans to, if I'm elected, I have plans to have a person down here that is, we can have an assistant, and we will have an assistant down here in Pollock Pines located that will be met with by me, and the buck stops with me also. It does not matter who is in charge of any of my assistant or anything down here, the buck will stop with me because I will work through that person, through the community, but I will also be involved with the community. I have also been attending other districts and their meetings, the Dorado Oaks, for example. How, as a supervisor, am I going to make a decision based on land use issues or budget issues if I don't know what's going on in another district? So I have actually been attending other districts, and that is how we're going to get what we want up here and proper representation in Myers and Pollock Pines and everybody else. The next question.
Thank you. Okay, hang with me, this one's a little longer. The Board of Supervisors deals with many complex and contentious issues. Please give an example of a group you've worked with when various member views were in conflict and the role that you played in reaching consensus with the group.
When I was in the military, I was an equal opportunity officer, and it came up at the time with the don't ask, don't tell situation. And I dealt with thousands and thousands of soldiers that were experiencing don't ask, don't tell. We had to have a lot of meetings and everything else, and the one thing that we came away from that in the military was that when I got an interview from our local paper, because I was one of the only military people ever up in South Lake Tahoe that was active, they asked me, what do you think about the don't ask, don't tell situation? And I said, you guys are the ones that are causing the problems. In the military, we don't care. Everybody has a right to do what they want. And everybody has a right within rights, as long as they're not interfering with other people's rights. But they have every right to do and become whoever they want to be. And in the military, we went with the flow. We didn't care. It was the media and everybody else that pushed their agenda on us. Other situations is I've owned my own company for, like I said, for 41 years, and I've dealt with hundreds and hundreds of employees. And my average employee stays with me 18 years. And the reason they do is because we take care of each other. I can't do what I do without them, and the same thing works with the community of Pollock Pines and Myers. I can't do my job without you guys. You guys are the ones that we need to depend on.
Thank you. Brooke.
Thank you. Well, cell phone towers. That was very contentious within the city of South Lake Tahoe. We had the side that really believes that there are health implications and that cell phone towers put out radiation that kills wildlife and hurts home values. I mean, you name that whole side of the fray. Then we had the pro cell phone people. A lot of that was the AT&Ts, but it was also people that say, I make my livelihood by telecommuting, the service up here is bad, we need more cell towers. And then we had the federal government through the FAA telling us, you cannot consider health as a reason for not putting up a 5G cell tower. So we felt as a council very stuck in the middle. I read lots of reports, I spoke with people, I went and met with residents that had this equipment nearby their homes and were upset about it. And the outcome was we agreed as a council that we had a right to govern our community and to put some rules down so that cell phone companies couldn't just come in and put their equipment anywhere they wanted. So it was resolved very amicably by creating some policy around it, but it was a very contentious issue.
Thank you. You'll be first for this next question. Can you please describe what CEQA is and an environmental impact report and how you would use them in your role?
CEQA it's really intended to look at a project and through a certain process, determine if it has environmental impacts to the project. And to do so in a very fair and transparent way, all agencies use them the same. Basically, our staff works with all of that. We don't actually produce those documents, but we certainly have to read them and understand them and come to certain findings with regards to impact or no impact. Almost every CEQA report that has ever come before me has always been non-findings, because really, if there is a finding, that project's pretty much dead in the water. A finding of, for example, that a project is going to hurt an owl population that is to be protected, or water, it will have impacts to water. So very rarely do we get a CEQA report before us that has bad findings in it. They're always non-findings, and the project can move forward.
Thank you. Kenny?
Yes.
Can you describe what CEQA is and an environmental impact report and how you would use them in your role?
Okay. Back one thing to the cell phone towers that you had mentioned. In the military, we used 95 megahertz as a weapon, and the cell phone companies can go anywhere from 60 to 90 megahertz. And in 90 megahertz, 95, we used it as a weapon. I have never dealt with CEQA as the alphabet agency, but I have dealt with another alphabet agency that does environmental impacts, and almost on a daily basis in the 41 years I've been in business, and that's up there in South Lake Tahoe. That is the TRPA. They have ultimate jurisdiction over every single facet of our life up there in South Lake Tahoe and actually the entire basin. What they do is they do their own CEQA. They do their own environmental studies, and being a tree service contractor, I have dealt with the environmental studies for the owls, the frogs, the people that want to save the trees, the people that don't want to save the trees. We have dealt with every type of environmental agency not with CEQA, but with the TRPA, and TRPA is actually more powerful than the CEQA. And so I feel that I can come right in there and flow right in there because I've dealt with it for the last 41 years. I built my own house, and we had to turn in 25 sets of plans to different agencies that dealt with all the environmental problems that we dealt with up there in Tahoe. One of them was the native Washoe Indians. They looked for arrowheads on our lot before we could build. So I have dealt with the environmental agencies quite a bit, just not specifically CEQA.
Thank you. Okay, so we've touched on a lot of different topics here so far. So we're going to go kind of higher level, and we're going to ask you, each of you, what your top 3 priorities are.
Top three. The first one is to handle the VHR situation up in South Lake Tahoe, and now what's happening in Myers, and now what's happening down here in Pollock Pines. We need to get a handle on the VHR situation. We also need to get a handle on the GPS and the app navigation systems that send all the traffic into your side streets. That is another item that is picking up on you guys. It's been with us for years, and now it's coming to coming to a town near you. So we need to deal with that. And the third one is, I need to work with the other supervisors in order to get everything that we want to get up here and work with that GPS and the VHR, because we need money to fight all this stuff. And all of our money, all of our TOT tax goes off of the hill. All the taxes that you guys pay down here for the VHRs and all the taxes we pay up there in the VHRs all come down to Placerville into the general fund, and then they're dispersed to wherever the flavor of the day is. We have gotten some money from them, but the biggest thing that we need, the number one is the VHR situation, both Pollock Pines and Myers. The second is the GPS issue, and third is how are we going to get the money to fight this?
Thank you. Brooke, can you tell us what your top 3 priorities are?
Yes, my top 3 priorities would be housing, fire preparedness, and transportation. So included in housing, I have an idea to start what's called a housing accelerator. The state of California has produced this model, and what it basically does is streamline agencies so that they have the same priorities. Housing projects that meet the criteria can move through the red tape much quicker. There would be some funding available to assist with any gaps that appear in a project, especially a deed-restricted affordable housing project. So that's one of my ideas with regards to housing. With regards to fire preparedness, we all know what that looks like. The scale and pace that we have to produce over the next 5 years in order to begin to really make a dent in protecting our homes and our communities has got to occur at a federal level. It really, the U.S. Forest Service, as all of you know, owns the majority of the land around here, and they're not addressing it fast enough or on a big enough scale. So those things need to happen. We, as residents, need to continue to do our part, and I'm very impressed with Pollock Pines. I came down and participated in some fire safe council meetings and learned a lot, and you guys were a predecessor. You beat us out of the gate, so congratulations to you, and we're learning from you. And then finally, transportation, which would include traffic and transit, road maintenance, and snow removal. We've got to get better snow removal equipment. What they use down here is not acceptable, and what they're using up at the lake is not working. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Brooke, you're first up for this question. Should the County Chamber of Commerce get a county building for $3 a year rent?
I have no idea, should they? I mean, $3 sounds affordable, but do they belong in a county facility? You know, I could definitely see, you know, some conflicts there. So I'm not really, you know, haven't really thought that through very much, but it sounds like it could be a problem.
Thank you. Kenny, would you like to address should the County Chamber of Commerce get a county building for $3 a year rent?
Absolutely not. When I have had my forums with the various chambers up and down the hill, the one thing that we always discuss is the political action committees and the government affairs committee. I feel that we as taxpayers, we are giving money to the chambers, and they are supposed to be representing us. And I believe that they should have a governmental affairs committee. They should have their own building. It should be paid for by the chamber members. But the governmental affairs committee should be focused on the businesses and national politics and not personal politics like a board of supervisors election or any type of election, any type of a local election. When they are using our tax dollars to choose a person, that goes against what our tax. I don't want my tax dollars choosing somebody, whether they choose Brooke or whether they choose me. I don't want them to choose anybody. I want them to stay neutral. I want them to stay in the business of the South, or excuse me, of the chamber business. And no, they should not have a building.
Thank you. Okay, the next question I had to get clarification on because I'm from El Dorado Hills, so thank you, Kathy. What are you going to do about the courthouse?
Which courthouse?
Placerville.
That would be something that I would have to come down and study and listen to the other supervisors. I would have to come down and talk to other people in the district also, because I'm not familiar with what's going to happen with the courthouse down in Placerville. Now, once again, that means that I have to come out of my shell up there, and I have to come down here, and I have to go to District 1, 2, 3, and 4 and talk to the people, and I have to come down here and I have to talk to the employees also, and I have to talk to the other supervisors, one at a time though, because I don't want to violate the Brown Act. But I need to get all the information before I can make a decision on something like that.
Thank you. Brooke.
Thank you. I only know really what affects South Lake Tahoe right now, and with regards to the courts, they're cutting back personnel constantly. We're down to 1 day of operating in the courthouse. So what I'm sure the plan is to keep the courthouse down here and to build a newer, larger facility. I don't really have skin in the game on that one, haven't really followed it very closely. But we're concerned when they start dividing the services, you know, in that kind of fashion, where our people up in Tahoe have to travel, of course, through snow, be separated from families in order to have a case heard.
Thank you. And Brooke, you'll start with this one as well. And without referring to your candidate, what makes you stand out as the candidate that should be elected for this role?
Well, I'm experienced, and I've been in the public arena for 10 years. This is a budget of $318 million general fund dollars, and there's a lot of pressures on how a budget gets divided up. And so the more experience you have in that regard, hitting the ground running, the better you're going to be. Certainly, I have proven myself as a collaborator and a person that listens to all sides of an issue, and I think those are important traits to bring to this position. And again, to hit the ground running is really important on the magnitude of this position.
Thank you. Kenny.
I've lived in Tahoe for 46 years. I have been involved with the entire community, up and down, and everything. Like I said in my original statement, I am in the community every single day, and I'm making contact with hundreds of people a day and through my business. And my truck is very recognizable. People call me at all hours of the day and night. Most of the time they come over to my house, and half the time they just walk in. If anybody has a problem, I am there for them. I have always been there for the last 46 years that I've been in Tahoe. I have been involved with every single agency. I have been involved with every single group up there, and I am not affiliated with any one of them, so I can help each one of them equally without feeling guilty about doing anything like that. As far as a budget goes, being a major in the military, I was responsible for hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of budget for the military, and that's where we bought our $25 hammers and $100 toilet seats. I was in charge of a maintenance company, which is hundreds of millions of dollars, and I was in charge of hundreds and hundreds of soldiers, and over the course of my career, thousands and thousands of people. I have the experience to be out there. I have the experience to interact with everybody, and I will never ever turn anybody down without listening to all sides.
Thank you. And this is for you, Kenny. Our schools and youth are very important to us and our families. How can you assist the community with safe and healthy activities?
Working with the school district and working with the school board and working with the superintendent of the schools. I've had meetings with all of them. My kids went through the system. Not only did they go through the system, but they were also homeschooled also. My daughter was on the U.S. team and U.S. ski team, and we traveled the country. So we were homeschooling, we were doing activities, and I always made sure that everybody studied when we were out skiing. You need to be able to work with the school board because that's a little bit beyond our scope of responsibility. So we need to work with the school board, and I plan on staying to listen to the school board, the candidates, and see how they want to interact with that. And I have met most of them, and they all have the same, pretty much the same idea, and that is something that we need to talk with them, because that is out of my scope of responsibility.
Thank you. Brooke?
Can you just read the beginning of that question again?
I sure can.
Thank you.
Our schools and youth are very important to us and our families. How can you assist the community with safe and healthy activities?
Excellent, thank you. Well, I think that the community of Pollock Pines is leading the way in that regard. The park that you all have dreamt up, Forbay Park, is just really outstanding, and it's in that really fun, creative time where you're taking a project and you're trying to figure out what you like and what you don't like. There's been great discussion among the community as to, the bike park, the Frisbee golf. You have thought about accessible recreation for those children and adults, quite frankly, that are challenged. And I think that that is so neat that you're putting that all together into this one area, and I commend you for that. So my role would be to work with organizations or perhaps the school district to come up with the ideas that you want to see. Thank you.
Thank you. And Brooke, you'll take this one first. How will you work effectively with law enforcement and firefighters?
Well, it's all about relationships, right? So what I would do and what I have done in the past is meet regularly with the chiefs, with the line people as well. It's super important to hear from all the different levels of those agencies. The sheriff in particular is a little bit more difficult within the county because they are their own elected official. The Board of Supervisors and the CAO have no control necessarily over them. So it's all the more reason to have a very good relationships so that as problems develop, you can walk in the door and have conversations.
Thank you. Kenny, can you talk about how you would effectively work with law enforcement and firefighters?
Okay, I work with firefighters on a daily basis through my tree business. We are currently the tree service company for the Tahoe Douglas, which is on the other side of the state line. And we do all of their hazard work, and we also do all of their defensible space. They go out and they mark trees and mark roofs to be cleared of pine needles, and they call us to come in and clear everything up. We have worked with the law enforcement. I have met with the new sheriff. I have met with the outgoing sheriff, and we are basically on the same sheet of music as far as working together. And yes, you are right, they do not work for us, and that was made very clear that, that we need to work with them and not against them.
Thank you. And this one's for you, Kenny, to start with. Since supervisors cannot vote for land use in Tahoe, why should the supervisors from District 5 vote on land use in Districts 2, 3, 4, and 5?
Because we were elected as a supervisor for the entire county. And I'll bring that up again, that I have been going down to Wendy Thomas's district, District 2, and I have been going down to the Parker Development in that other district, and I have sat in on all of their meetings that they have had because I want to listen to what the residents have to say. And when I go to those meetings, I don't tell anybody I'm going there. I show up on purpose, 10 minutes late, everybody sits down, I walk into the back, I park against the wall, and I sit there and I listen to everybody. Both the supervisor, both the Department of Transportation, Raphael. I listen to all the residents when they talk, and I listen to all the Fire Safe Council. I listen to the Planning Commission, and I listen to everybody, and I get a big picture on what the residents want in that area. And so it's important for us to get out of our shell and come down into the other districts and learn what's going on.
Thank you. Brooke?
That is such an interesting question. As you know, and as I pointed out earlier, there are 11 communities that make up District 5, and not all of those are within the basin. So a District 5 supervisor voting on land use, not only in parts of our district, but certainly the other 4 districts, is just government efficiency. So it's the team of 5 supervisors that make these decisions regularly, and we all have to work together. And it would be very important as a supervisor in District 5 to understand the issues in 1, 2, 3, and 4, so that you can also make good decisions. But that is just how the Board of Supervisors are made up, and that's how the decisions are made. It would be incumbent on me to make sure I understand what the needs are in other districts, as it'll be incumbent on the other supervisors to understand our needs in District 5.
Thank you. And Brooke, you'll start with this question. This one makes me laugh.
Okay.
How often do you watch Board of Supervisors meetings?
Oh, dear. A year ago, never. They are long. They are all day. I was serving on the City Council all the way through 2020. So I was interacting with our current supervisor, Sue Novosel, during that time, but I had all I could do to take care of what I was elected to do. So I did not partake in those meetings. Now I find them very interesting, and I usually watch them based on topics that I'm of interest in, because watching the whole thing, my dogs they have to go outside every couple hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Kenny, how often do you watch Board of Supervisors meetings?
Never. What I do when other people contact me and they always show me the videos or they show me sections of the Board of Supervisors meeting that they want me to be concerned with, specifically for District 5. Now lately, since I've been going to the other districts, other people have been sending me snippets of what they want me to hear, if I'm a supervisor, what they want to hear. And no, I haven't watched the Board of Supervisors meeting because the feedback that I get from the people that send me all the information is the same thing. They're long, and I'm usually working.
Thank you. Okay, for our next question, we're going to tag on to that one a little bit, and we're going to talk about how you work with the other Board of Supervisors from the other districts. How will you advocate for the residents of District 5 when competing with large districts like 1 and 2? How will you advocate for residents here specifically?
Well, population-wise, we're almost exactly the same. We have to be in order to be equal. So each supervisor will be representing the same amount of people. So we will have 1/5 of a vote. The last election, I was in contact with several of the supervisors, and once again, one-on-one, so I do not violate any Brown Acts or any hint of a Brown Act, even though I was not a supervisor at the time. And I have been in contact with the other supervisors also currently, 1 and 2 at a time, so as not to violate any hint of the Brown Act. That is how we're going to do it. And I have driven down here on a whim. When someone asks me, they say, hey, we want to find out your opinion on this. Will you do a Zoom meeting? No, I will not. Where's the address? I drive down here and I attend the meeting in person. And that's what I will do with all the supervisors, 1 and 2 at a time, so I don't violate the Brown Act.
Thank you. Okay. Actually, we are out of time, so it's time to begin our closing arguments. And just as a reminder, you each will have 3 minutes for your closing statements. Excuse me. So I believe we started opening statements with Brooke.
Oh yeah, you did.
Yes. So Kenny, you will be starting with your closing statement. So you have 3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes. I could read that again, but just to get a highlight on it, I can hit the ground running. Thank you. I can hit the ground running with my real world experience. Yes, I don't know anybody that has experience as a supervisor if they have not been a supervisor before. So yes, I have no experience as a supervisor. But as real world experience, I am experienced in all facets of just about anything you can talk about. I was adopted. So if you want to talk about, giving away, don't want to use the wrong term, but I was adopted, so I'm familiar with the needs and the wants of a woman. Not being a woman, but I've had experience with that. I've had experience with, my daughter was shot and killed by an illegal person with an AK-47, and she was in the National Guard. So I have experience with arms. I have experience with mental health issues. My son was in the Navy. He committed suicide. He had issues. So I'm familiar with the post-traumatic stress. I spent 20 years in the military. I don't have any, but I am familiar with all aspects of anything that you want to talk about. Fire safe. Well, a little closer to home, we've done thousands and thousands of defensible spaces throughout our community. Most of them I've done almost free. We've had block parties. We can help with the building and the housing and the homeless. I know people that are homeless, and I have helped people. I've got a worker working for me right now that was walking the streets, and I took him off, put him through AA, and now he's an employee and a good member of our society, and he's also a hotshot. So he's helping with the Calidor fire. The Calidor fire, when that was going on, I stayed in Tahoe, and I put out the information that was required by everybody. And I put out the correct information. Now, I had to say that it was the unofficial, official information, because I did get my information from the incident commanders and the other people in charge. But I was not an official. But I put that information out anyway. I have real world experience. I've owned my own company. I've been married for 41 years, raised 3 kids. 30 seconds, I don't think I have anything else. When you go into that booth, just like I said, when you go into that booth, you need to vote for the person that you feel is most qualified and can get you what you want. Because you have to remember the first 3 words of our Declaration of Independence is "we the people," and that's us, we. So you need to vote for the person that you feel is most qualified. Not because they're your friend, or they're in a club, or they're talking like this, or they're in the Army, or whatever.
Thank you. Brooke, closing statements.
Thank you. Well, I first want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event tonight. Thank you for doing that. And here in Pollock Pines, that was just great. And this is from Kenny, too. I also want to thank my opponent, Kenny Kurzweiler. He and I have been friends for a long time. We're both running a very clean campaign, and I want to thank you for that. In today's day and age, it's unusual. I do want to just comment on the last question that you asked. I just have a 30-second response to it. I think you just jumped to the closing, which I'm sure the audience is happy about. But I just wanted to say, with regards to collaboration with the other supervisors, I did watch a meeting a couple weeks ago, and one of the supervisors made a very strong argument for what he wanted to see happen with regards to homeless. And the other supervisors heard him and offered an amendment to the motion that gave him what he was asking for, and he still voted against it. I think it's so important that we keep in mind as your elected official that sometimes we can't get everything we want on the first try, but we just get a piece and we go back for another piece the next day. Compromise is very, very important. I want to say that I would respectfully ask for your vote on November 8th. I think I'm the most qualified candidate in this particular race. I think qualifications matter. I'm fair. I always do my homework. I read those staff packets like crazy. I listen to all sides of an issue, and I try to come up with fair and equitable outcomes. Again, I respectfully ask for your vote on November 8th, and thank you again for coming out tonight and hearing us. Thank you.
audience, this has been taped and will be available in a couple of days on YouTube, on our website, and on Voters Edge, the League's online voter guide. And just as a reminder, ballots will start going out the first week of October or so, and you can register to vote all the way up until Election Day. Again, if you're looking for a place to drop off your ballot or you want to track your ballot, you can do that as well. We're happy to help answer any other voter registration questions you might have after this forum. We'll be taking a quick break now in order to get ready for our next forum. Thank you very much.